My younger sister was secretly having an affair with my fiancé. When I uncovered their shocking plan to run away to Hawaii, I caught them red-handed in the bedroom. Furious, I confronted my sister, but she boldly said, "I'm marrying your fiancé." Even worse, my fiancé stood by her. Heartbroken, I walked away. But little did they know, I was coming back with a revenge so unexpected, it would leave them speechless. I had always thought I knew what betrayal looked like, but I never imagined it would come from the people I loved most. My name is Clara, and I'm 32 years old. I've spent most of my adult life as a journalist in Chicago, working hard to build a career I'm proud of. I used to believe that success could protect you from the ugliness of life. That if you just kept your head down and did the right thing, you'd be rewarded. But that all changed in one moment, a moment I'll never forget. It all started with Ethan. He was 35, handsome, wealthy, and so charming that I couldn't believe I was the one he'd chosen. I was the lucky one, or at least, that's what I thought. He had everything: money, power, confidence, and I loved him. I trusted him with all my heart. We'd been together for 2 years, and everything seemed perfect. We'd even planned our wedding, down to the smallest details, and I couldn't wait to begin our lives together. But the truth was, I wasn't the only one who felt lucky. There was someone else, someone I never thought would betray me. My younger sister, Lily. She was 25, and while I loved her, I often found her jealousy toward me hard to ignore. We had always been close growing up, but as we got older, I could feel the distance between us. She was always comparing herself to me, and no matter how much I tried to encourage her, she couldn't help but feel overshadowed by my career and the attention I received from people, including Ethan. One afternoon, everything changed. I had been feeling off, noticing that something wasn't right between me, Ethan, and Lily. They had always been friendly, but lately, something seemed different, distant, almost secretive. Maybe it was my gut telling me that something was wrong, or maybe I was just being paranoid. But whatever it was, it led me to check Lily's phone one night when she left it carelessly on the kitchen counter. I wasn't proud of what I did, but in that moment, I had to know. I scrolled through her messages without any intention other than to find the truth. Then I saw it. Texts between Lily and Ethan, planning a vacation to Hawaii together. They were speaking as if I wasn't even there. They were going to take a trip, a getaway to a tropical island. I froze, my heart racing in my chest. My hands shook as I read the words. It didn't make sense. Ethan, my fiancé, and my sister, the one person I thought would never hurt me, were planning something behind my back. They didn't just want a vacation. They were planning to enjoy their lives together while I was left completely in the dark. My mind was spinning. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. I knew I had to confront them. I couldn't just ignore this. So, I did what anyone would do in my situation. I confronted them. I waited until Ethan was over at my apartment, and I knew Lily would be there. I had to see it for myself. I remember the look on their faces when I walked into the living room, phone in hand, the evidence clear between us. Ethan was sitting on the couch, relaxed, as if nothing was wrong. Lily was standing by the window, her back to me, but I could feel the tension in the air. I didn't say anything at first. I just held out the phone for them to see. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling but resolute. Ethan's face went pale as he saw the screen. He looked at me, then at Lily, but said nothing. He was silent, and it felt like a lifetime passed before Lily turned around. She didn't even flinch. She didn't apologize or try to explain herself. Instead, she walked towards me, her face calm, almost too calm. "Clara," she said, her voice cold, "it's not what you think." I felt like my whole world had shifted. Not what I think. I was holding the evidence in my hand. "You're embracing my fiancé, Lily," I said, the words feeling foreign as they left my mouth. What else could it possibly be? Lily crossed her arms over her chest and looked me square in the eye. "I'm in love with him, Clara," she said. "I've been in love with him for a long time, and I'm not going to hide it anymore." My mind was reeling. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're my sister," I said, the hurt in my voice clear now. "How could you do this to me?" She stood her ground. never backing down. "It's not your business," she said, shrugging. "It's my personal life, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Ethan and I have decided to be together. We're planning to get married, Clara. We've been seeing each other behind your back for months now." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I didn't know how to respond. My sister, the one I had always protected, always supported, was standing there admitting to betraying me, and Ethan just stood there, saying nothing. He didn't defend me, didn't apologize. He just stood by her side, silently supporting her. It was as if I didn't matter to either of them. "Say something," I said to Ethan, my voice barely above a whisper. But he remained quiet, just staring at me with that same blank expression on his face. And in that moment, I realized that everything I had believed in, everything I thought was real, had been a lie. The pain of that realization was almost unbearable. My heart felt like it was breaking, and yet I stood there, trying to keep it together. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I walked out of the room, my head spinning, my body numb. I couldn't stay there anymore. I needed to tell my parents. They had to understand what had happened, right? But when I got home, the response I got from them was not what I expected. They didn't react the way I thought they would. My father, sitting in his favorite chair, barely looked up from his newspaper when I told him about Ethan and Lily. "You're overreacting," he said, dismissing my pain. "They love each other, Clara. It happens." My mother, who had always been more supportive, tried to offer some comfort, but her words didn't feel like comfort at all. "They've made their choices, honey. You can't do anything about it." I was stunned. My own parents were justifying what had happened. They said I should accept it and move on. When I said I couldn't, they told me if I had a problem with it, I should leave. And that's when I knew. I knew I was completely alone. No one was going to stand by me. Not even my family. So I left. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to get out of that house. I couldn't stay there anymore, pretending like everything was okay. But what happened next was not something I could have ever expected. What I did next would change everything. I didn't just walk away. I wasn't going to let this betrayal slide. I was going to make them pay. The night I left my parents' house was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I couldn't stay there, not after everything that had happened. I felt like I was suffocating, trapped in a world where betrayal was the currency of love. I had no one to turn to except myself. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew that I had to make them understand. Ethan and Lily needed to be exposed. They needed to feel the same hurt and humiliation I had felt. I was so angry, so devastated by the fact that both of them, my sister and the man I had trusted, had done this to me. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just let them go on with their lives like nothing had happened. The first thing I did was head to my apartment in downtown Chicago. It wasn't much, just a modest place for someone like me, working hard in a competitive industry, but it was mine. At least I still had that. After everything, I needed something to hold on to. I sat down at my desk, staring at my phone for a long time, unsure of what the next step should be. That's when I got the idea. Social media. I had a platform. I had followers, people who trusted me for the work I did as a journalist. If I could get my message out there, if I could expose what they had done, maybe it would hurt them the way they hurt me. I went through my photos, finding every picture of Ethan and Lily together that I could find. They weren't even trying to hide it. There were photos from vacations, dinners out, even a few of them laughing at some private joke. I'd seen them all before everything changed, but now, they were just reminders of the life I thought I had. I posted the pictures on my social media account along with a message. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't hide behind the pretense of politeness. I said exactly what I felt. This is the truth. My sister and my fiancé have been lying to me. They've been having an affair behind my back for months. I hope everyone enjoys this new couple because they're about to destroy everything I've ever worked for. I hit send. The next few hours were a blur. My phone exploded with messages. People I hadn't heard from in years reached out. Friends, colleagues, even strangers weighed in with comments of shock, support, and sympathy. Some people expressed disbelief, while others shared their own stories of betrayal. But the one thing I couldn't shake was the sense that Ethan and Lily didn't care. They were too wrapped up in their own world, in their own love affair, to worry about what I had just done. When I checked the posts the next morning, I saw they had both gone quiet. Ethan didn't respond. Lily didn't comment either. It was like they were pretending that nothing had happened, that I wasn't out there exposing the truth about them. But that didn't bother me. I knew they were both probably hiding from the public, trying to avoid the consequences of their actions. I wanted them to feel humiliated. I wanted them to regret ever hurting me. But that wasn't enough. I wasn't going to stop there. I couldn't just expose them to the public and walk away. I needed to make Ethan feel like everything he had built was about to fall apart. That's when I hired an investigator. I found a reputable investigator who specialized in looking into people's backgrounds. I told him everything about Ethan's past, about his wealth, about how he had been with me for so long without ever showing any sign of dishonesty. I wanted to know who he really was. I needed to know if there were more secrets hiding in the dark, just waiting to be uncovered. The investigator promised to dig deep, and within a few days I got the call. What he told me shocked me to my core. Ethan wasn't just some rich, charming man who had a few secrets. He was involved in multiple illegal relationships, using his money and influence to hide his activities. But that wasn't the worst part. Ethan was also running a smuggling operation, a large-scale, underground business that involved trafficking goods across borders. He had been using his wealth and connections to cover up his criminal activities. I couldn't believe it. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, had been living a double life. I felt sick to my stomach. How had I been so blind? How could I have trusted someone who had done something so horrible? But instead of feeling pity for Lily, I felt only anger. She had gotten involved with someone who wasn't just a liar but a criminal. I could have told her everything I knew. I could have exposed Ethan for what he truly was. But in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to warn her. She had made her bed, and now she was going to lie in it. I didn't need to protect her anymore. I was done. I went to bed that night, knowing the full extent of Ethan's actions. I knew that I had just uncovered a huge part of his life that he didn't want anyone to know. But my plan wasn't finished yet. I would make sure Ethan paid for what he had done. I would make sure that Lily understood the consequences of getting involved with someone like him. I wasn't just going to sit back and let them continue their lives while I was left broken. The next morning, the news hit. The authorities had uncovered Ethan's illegal business, and he was arrested for smuggling. It wasn't just Ethan, Lily was involved too. She hadn't known what Ethan was up to, but her connection to him had dragged her down with him. She was implicated in the entire operation, and now she was facing legal consequences for her part in his criminal dealings. I didn't feel relief or satisfaction. I didn't feel anything. The revenge I had sought was complete, but the hole in my heart was still there. I had won, but at what cost? I had exposed them both for what they really were. They were being punished for their actions, but that didn't bring me back what they had taken. And the worst part? My parents reached out to me, asking me to help release Lily from her legal troubles. They begged me to forgive her, to help her out of the mess she had gotten herself into. But I had already made up my mind. This wasn't my problem anymore. I told them, "This is your problem now. Never contact me again." I thought that once everything had been exposed, I would feel some sense of closure. I had set the wheels in motion, had taken my revenge. Ethan was arrested, Lily was implicated in his illegal activities, and my parents, well, they had their own set of problems to deal with. But in reality, nothing felt finished. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel satisfaction. All I felt was an emptiness, a hole where trust used to be, where love used to be. For weeks, I didn't hear from anyone. No one from my family reached out to check on me. The messages and calls I received from friends and even strangers were comforting, but they were hollow. The truth was, I had lost more than just my sister and fiancé. I had lost the family I thought I knew. The people who should have supported me, who should have been by my side through this betrayal, had turned their backs on me. I focused on my work. I threw myself into my job as a journalist, thinking that if I just kept myself busy enough, I wouldn't have to think about what had happened. But no matter how hard I worked, my mind always went back to the same place, my parents, my sister, and Ethan. Then one day, out of the blue, I got a call from my mother. My heart sank when I saw her name on the caller ID. I hadn't spoken to her since I told her I was done. I didn't want to hear her excuses, didn't want to hear her try to justify what had happened. But despite everything, part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, she would show some understanding. I answered the phone, bracing myself for whatever was coming. "Clara," my mother's voice came through, soft but filled with guilt. "We need to talk." I didn't say anything at first. I wasn't sure what to say. The last time we spoke, I had made it clear that I didn't want any part of their drama anymore. But my mother was persistent, and for some reason I found myself listening. "I know you're hurt," she said, her voice shaky. "But you have to understand, we didn't know everything. We didn't know Ethan was involved in those things, and Lily, well, she's still my daughter. She's just a young girl. She made a mistake." A mistake. My blood boiled. A mistake? How could my own mother minimize what had happened? I wanted to scream, to tell her that it wasn't just a mistake, that Lily had betrayed me in the worst way possible. But I held my tongue. There was no point in arguing. "I can't help you with Lily," I said, my voice tight. "I've already told you. This is your problem now. I'm done. I won't be dragged back into this. Not after everything." There was a pause on the other end. I could almost hear the weight of her disappointment. "I understand," she said finally, "but just know we're sorry. We'll always be your family. We're just asking for your forgiveness. For Lily's sake." "Goodbye, Mom," I said, cutting her off before she could say more. I ended the call, the finality of it ringing in my ears. For the first time, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had stood my ground. I wasn't going to allow myself to be dragged into their toxic world anymore. I wasn't going to keep forgiving them for things they had done to me. And just like that, I was free. But the truth was, even after everything, there was still a part of me that missed the old days. The times when my family had been whole, when everything felt right. But those days were gone now, and I couldn't live in the past. I couldn't keep wishing for things to go back to the way they were. I had to move forward for my own sake. And I did. I moved forward with my life, focusing on what truly mattered. My career, my independence. The truth was, I was stronger now, more resilient than ever. Ethan and Lily had tried to tear me down, but they had only made me realize how much strength I had within me. I had come out of this mess with my head held high, and for the first time in months, I started to feel like myself again. But there was still one thing left to do. I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't need their approval. All I needed was to keep moving forward, to build a life for myself, one where I could be free of the past, free of the betrayal, and free of them. And that's exactly what I planned to do. The anger, the pain, it was all starting to fade. Slowly but surely. It was time to let go, time to start fresh. I had taken my revenge, and now it was time to rebuild my life. And nothing, not even my past, was going to stop me. The days after I made the decision to sever all ties with my family were quiet, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. The storm of emotions that had ravaged my life for months seemed to settle, and in its place, there was a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in years. I was no longer living in the shadow of betrayal, no longer drowning in the expectations and manipulation that had defined my relationships with my family. I focused entirely on my career. As a journalist, I had always been driven, but the past few months had given me a clarity I hadn't realized I needed. Writing became my escape, my sanctuary. It was the one thing in my life that remained steady and true, and I threw myself into it with a renewed passion. For the first time, I felt like I was reclaiming my power, not just in my career, but in every part of my life. But even as I threw myself into my work, there were moments when my past would creep back in, memories of Ethan, of Lily, of the family I had once been so close to. I could still see my mother's face, filled with that desperate hope for reconciliation, and hear my father's dismissive words about getting over it. But the more time passed, the more I realized something. No matter how much they tried to justify their actions, I didn't need them. I didn't need their approval, their excuses, or their toxic love. One evening, as I sat in my apartment after a long day of work, I received an unexpected call. I hesitated for a moment before picking up, unsure of who would be calling me now. When I saw the number, I froze. It was from my mother. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but something inside told me I needed to hear what she had to say. Clara, her voice was tentative, careful. We've been through so much, and I know things have been hard. But I want you to know that I've been thinking a lot about everything. I'm sorry, truly sorry, for the way we treated you. My heart twisted, not because I was glad to hear from her, but because I could hear the regret in her voice. I had longed for this kind of acknowledgement, but now it felt distant, like it came too late. I don't know what to say, I responded, my voice steady but guarded. I've heard your apologies before. And honestly, I don't think they mean anything anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could sense her disappointment, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted you to know that we're sorry, she said again. And I hope, one day, you can forgive us. I took a deep breath before answering. Maybe I will, Mom. But not today. Not now. We said our goodbyes, and I ended the call. As I sat there, reflecting on what had just happened, I realized something important. My forgiveness wasn't for them, it was for me. But it had to come on my terms. I wasn't going to let my family's mistakes dictate my happiness or my future. And that was the last time I ever spoke to them. A few months later, as I continued to rebuild my life, I met someone new. His name was Matthew. He wasn't anything like Ethan. He was kind, thoughtful, and patient. He didn't come with a hidden agenda or dark secrets. He simply appreciated me for who I was. I didn't rush into anything. After everything that had happened, I wasn't ready to open my heart completely. But with time, Matthew showed me that it was possible to trust again. We took things slowly, but I knew deep down that I was healing, little by little. One day, as I sat with Matthew at a cafe, watching the sunset, I realized how far I had come. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up. The pain from my past no longer controlled me. I was stronger now, wiser, even. And most importantly, I was free. I still thought about Lily and Ethan, of course. They were my family, after all, and the memories of what they had done to me would never fully go away. But I had learned to live with it, to accept that not everything could be fixed, and not all relationships were worth saving. I had let go of the past, and in doing so, I had found peace. As I walked down the path with Matthew, I couldn't help but smile. Life wasn't perfect, but I had finally created a life that was mine, one built on trust, honesty, and love. And for the first time in a long time, I was happy. No longer bound by the expectations of others, I had found the freedom to choose my own path, and that was all that mattered now. And that was my true revenge. Not in hurting them, but in finding my own peace, my own happiness, without them.